Calvin is a tough criminal on the verge of being released from prison. When he is released from prison, we learn that he is about 3 feet tall. A close companion and fellow burglar, Percy, arrives to pick him up but accidentally slams him with the car door.
I'm sorry, Cal!
While driving, Percy revealed his new job of stealing a diamond from a jewelry store. An influential gang boss offered $100,000 to carry out this heist.
You're gonna hang in the back until Vanessa gets here. It's cool. I got you.
When Vanessa tries to inform Daryl about the great news, he slashes her down in the middle and stands up, screaming that his wife is pregnant. The entire audience applauds for them. Jimmy appears at that point, playing a love tune. Vanessa, regrettably, claims that it is untrue. Good news. She received a promotion at work. Daryl tries to cover his displeasure, but fails miserably. Daryl desperately wants to have a child as soon as possible. Finally, Vanessa assurances that they will have a child in a few years when the time is right. Afterward, the amusing thieves show up at the location. Calvin smacked Percy in the face as soon as he pulled a revolver out of his pocket because he was afraid of going back to jail. Calvin is placed in a bag, which Percy then brings inside. He also diverts the sale girl's attention while Calvin sneaks beneath the valuable jewel. He took out the drill and stole the diamond effectively. Everything is going as planned until a dog follows Calvin and gets inside the bag with him. The dog owner panics when the dog barks from inside Percy's bag. The salesgirl spots the missing diamond as the robbers depart. She immediately calls the police. Wow. Guard does nothing as he watches Percy leave with the woman's dog until the girl cries out that some jewelry is missing. Tell me what you were protecting there, Mr. Guard. In an effort to get away, Percy tried to run away in the car, but it continued to spin in the same spot. When Percy stepped out of the car, he observed that the wheels were locked. Percy picked up Calvin and started running away on foot. When police arrived, the dog owner provided the police with clues about the robbers, and the police followed the lead. The robbers tried to conceal themselves by running into a store, but the cops show up shortly. Coincidentally, the attractive couple continued their customary argument in the store while shopping. In a moment of panic, Calvin ditches the diamond in Vanessa's bag without her noticing to avoid being caught with it. Fortunately, the police miss them, and they continue their journey. When the couple leaves, Calvin and Percy get in a taxi and follow them to their house. Vanessa is greeted by her father, Pops, inside the home. It appears that the father and daughter have a strong bond. However, Daryl is not a fan of Pops, and Pops is not a fan of him either. Daryl was entirely enraged by that comment. Before the argument got heated, Vanessa said she would only have a child when she was ready. Meanwhile, Percy loads the gun to take the diamond back, but Calvin insists they devise a better strategy. Because they have eavesdropped on their family conversation, Percy finally gets a brilliant idea from a woman walking a stroller.
No, I ain't dressing up like no baby.
Calvin was placed in a dog basket by Percy, who posed himself as a baby. Percy abandoned him on Daryl's doorstep. He then crept behind a bush and observed. A dog arrives out of nowhere and pisses on Calvin. When Daryl opens the door, he discovers an abandoned baby. He called Vanessa and brought the child inside. When the couple is about to change his diaper, they notice that his personal belongings are way too big for a baby. Pops shout that it isn't a baby at all. Vanessa then phones child services, discovering that they are closed till Monday. Finally, they decided to call the police. Upon hearing this, Calvin immediately started to cry and then pretended to cough. Daryl stated that they must first take him to the doctor.
Toss that monster out the window and keep moving.
The doctor struggled very hard to remove his clothing. They learned that the baby had scars on his body and tattoos. During the oral examination, they discovered that the baby had the teeth of a 40-year-old. The doctor assures the couple that everything appears in order and that they need not be concerned. He's a grown guy. That much is obvious. Where did you obtain your medical license? I envision a Banana Republic medical council. Calvin grabbed Vanessa's bag and started running as the pair debated their next move. But he was caught by a police officer and brought back to Vanessa. When Calvin calls her mama, she decides to keep him. Meanwhile, Percy encounters gangster Walken, who believes they have betrayed him. He warns Percy that he and Calvin will pass dead by the quarter hour if he doesn't return it in the next 24 hours. When Calvin returns home, he meets his grandpa, who dislikes his so-called grandson. Grandpa immediately snatched the cookie from Calvin as he tried to eat it, so as payback, Calvin rubbed the cookie over his armpit and private areas, which Grandpa later consumed with enthusiasm. Vanessa and Daryl throw a celebration that evening to formally welcome Calvin to the family. When a few of their friends arrive, they initially think Calvin is an ugly child and have disgusted facial expressions. They had a great time.
Oh, you want a nursey?
Afterward, everyone kissed each other. Goodbye. As they parted ways, wide open when Calvin winked at her. That night the pair compels him to fall asleep in his cradle before going to bed. In the middle of the night, Calvin wakes up and decides to finish the work. He springs out of bed, runs downstairs, grabs the bag, and calls Percy. While speaking like an adult, Pops notices him and is glad he is right about the big baby.
Oh, don't give me that old goo-goo gaga.
Daryl wakes up right away, but he doesn't believe Pop's assertions about the kid. Instead, Daryl prepares Calvin a milk bottle since he assumes he is hungry. The following day, Vanessa praised Daryl for the 2 performances he had given the previous night. After hearing this, Daryl is confused and senses something is seriously wrong. He was even more perplexed as he saw the baby dozing next to her. Vanessa then served her father breakfast. While the older man was preoccupied, Calvin leaped in and grabbed a piece of bacon and some burgers. He simply left the elderly man with an empty plate after a few hops. Pops accuses Calvin of stealing his food, but Vanessa doesn't buy it. Later, Daryl took Calvin to the park so they could play. Daryl places the baby bag in the trunk containing a diamond inside. Calvin instantly yelled out and demanded the car keys from Daryl. As he handed him the keys, Calvin entered his car and drove away. Daryl believed his son had been kidnapped. In a panic, Daryl takes a ride in the car of a lady who drives recklessly. She drove while answering the phone, applying lipstick, and also changing the child's diaper. Even James Bond's driving skills pale in comparison to hers. When he saw the massive truck approaching him, Daryl almost had a heart attack. Fortunately, Calvin is ultimately stopped by a patrol car, but the officer assumes the criminal left, leaving the infant.
Screw the car, long as he's okay.
The lovely couple celebrates his birthday the next day to make him feel like a part of the family. While having supper, Pops notices the primary suspect in a large jewelry heist is Calvin. Pops' concerns about Calvin were undoubtedly accurate, so everyone finally joins in on the birthday celebration for a lovely couple's adopted son. He becomes upset since no one has ever shown him such unconditional love. Pops show up at the celebration just in time to give him a teddy bear gift that has a concealed camera. Vanessa then discovered the gem. She believed it to be a present from Daryl. She quickly decides to take Daryl out to dinner, leaving Pops to look after Calvin. As they headed out of the house, Pops threw Calvin to the ground. Calvin realized his identity had been revealed. Therefore, he did not pretend to be a baby and instead confronted Pops immediately. In the meantime, Vanessa informs Daryl in the diner that she has decided to adopt Calvin legally. When they get back home, Pops is found choking Calvin. They quickly halted him and determined to send Pops to a mental institution. However, Pops yelled several times just before leaving to check on the teddy bear. Daryl then examines the teddy bear and realizes that it is a camera. When he attaches it to the television, he discovers a recording of Calvin confessing the truth. He runs into the bedroom, only to find Calvin has already departed with a diamond. While they are fleeing, Percy tells Calvin that Walken and his goons have found the couple and are heading to their home. When Calvin learned of it, he returned to save them while throwing Percy out of the vehicle. Unfortunately, when Calvin returned, the situation was already out of control. However, Calvin cleverly knocked out Walken goons one by one with pleasure. Finally, the boss came over and told Calvin to drop the plane he was holding. So Calvin lost control of the plane and crashed into the boss, knocking him out. The police show up, detain the offenders, and question Daryl regarding the child. Daryl defends Calvin from the cops out of gratitude for Calvin's assistance. Cops additionally informed Daryl that he was entitled to a $100,000 prize for his assistance in finding the diamond. Daryl offers Calvin a drink before he leaves and decides to keep Calvin as a family member. Later, Calvin and Pops are playing with Vanessa's new child, who does not resemble Daryl at all. Instead, the child is a carbon copy of Calvin. So that was Little Man. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and turn on the notification so you won't miss the next recap. Until then, cheers!